What if I told you that the homeless-looking man being mocked in a billion-dollar company's lobby was actually the person who signed everyone's paychecks? What if the nobody they laughed at could fire them all with a single word? And what if everything they thought they knew about power, respect, and consequences was about to be shattered in the most shocking way possible? This is the story of Samuel Hallberg, a CEO who risked everything to expose the ugly truth hiding behind his company's polished doors. And what he discovered didn't just shock him, it changed lives forever. But here's the twist. Not everyone got what they deserved. Some fell, others rose. And one act of kindness from a stranger became the moment that saved an entire company from collapse. If you believe that how we treat people when no one's watching reveals who we truly are, then you need to hear this story. Before we dive in, hit that like button right now if you're ready for a story about karma, justice, and the power of humility. And subscribe because we share stories like this every single day. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's begin. Samuel Hallberg wasn't born into wealth. He didn't inherit his empire. He built it, brick by brick, failure by failure, late night by late night. 23 years ago, Samuel was working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on in a cramped studio apartment. He was a janitor by night, a delivery driver on weekends, and spent every spare moment tinkering with technology in his tiny kitchen. His friends thought he was crazy. His family worried he'd never settle down. But Samuel had a vision. He wanted to create technology that genuinely helped people. Not just the wealthy, not just the connected, everyone. His first breakthrough came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. He'd been awake for 36 hours straight when he finally cracked the code on an algorithm that would later become the foundation of Hallberg Industries. Within 5 years, he had 12 employees working out of a converted warehouse. Within 10, he had 200. And by year 20, Hallberg Industries had become one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the entire city, employing over 1,500 people across multiple departments. But here's what Samuel never forgot. He never forgot the woman at the grocery store who gave him free bread when his card declined. He never forgot the landlord who let him pay rent 3 weeks late without judgment. He never forgot the mechanic who fixed his beat-up car for half price because he believed in Samuel's dream. Those people treated him with dignity when he had nothing to offer in return. And that lesson shaped everything Samuel built. But success has a way of changing things, not Samuel. He stayed grounded, humble, grateful. But his company, that was a different story. It started small. A few complaints here and there, a customer review mentioning rude staff, an email about unprofessional behavior. Samuel brushed them off at first. Every big company gets complaints, right? But then the complaints grew and grew and grew. One morning, Samuel received an email from an elderly customer named Margaret Chen. She wrote, "Mr. Hallberg, I've been trying to resolve a simple billing issue for 3 weeks. Every time I call, I'm transferred between departments. Every time I visit, I'm treated like I'm wasting their time. I used to believe your company cared about people like me. I was wrong." That email haunted Samuel, because Margaret was exactly the kind of person he'd built this company for. He started digging deeper, more reviews, more complaints, stories of customers being dismissed, mocked, and ignored. Reports of employees gossiping cruelly about clients behind their backs. Incidents of favoritism where well-dressed customers got VIP treatment while others were treated like nuisances. If you're already feeling frustrated by this, smash that like button, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Samuel called emergency meetings with department heads. "We need to address our customer service culture," he said firmly. They nodded. They promised. They sent out memos about excellence and values. Nothing changed. The reports kept coming. And Samuel realized something chilling. His own leadership team was either blind to the problem or complicit in it. That's when he made a decision that would risk everything. He wouldn't send another memo. He wouldn't hire consultants. He wouldn't give speeches about values from his corner office. Instead, Samuel Halberg would do something almost no CEO in history had ever dared to do. He would become invisible. 3 days later, Samuel stood in his walk-in closet staring at two very different versions of himself. On the left, tailored Italian suits, designer watches, polished leather shoes, the armor of success. On the right, old jeans with a frayed hem, a faded jacket he'd worn during his startup days, scuffed sneakers that had seen better years. He chose the right side. That morning, Samuel left his luxury penthouse at 6:15 a.m. But instead of his usual black Mercedes with the personalized plates, he walked 6 blocks to the subway station. He hadn't taken public transportation in over a decade. The crowds, the noise, the smell of coffee, and humanity pressed together, it was overwhelming and oddly humbling. A young woman offered him her seat, assuming he was older and tired. He politely declined, but the gesture stayed with him. Kindness from a stranger who had no idea who he was. At 8:47 a.m., Samuel Halberg walked through the gleaming glass doors of Halberg Industries' main headquarters. The building was magnificent, 30 stories of steel and innovation, with his company's name etched in elegant letters above the entrance. He'd designed every detail himself, from the fountain in the plaza to the art in the lobby. But today, he wasn't. Looking at the architecture, he was watching the people. The lobby was buzzing with activity. Employees in crisp business attire moved purposefully across the marble floors. The reception desk gleamed under carefully placed lighting, and behind that desk sat Julia Martinez, a woman who'd worked at the company for 3 years and had recently been promoted to head receptionist. Samuel approached slowly, keeping his head slightly down, his posture humble. Julia was on her phone, laughing at something. She didn't look up. Samuel waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Finally, she glanced at him with barely concealed annoyance. Yes? Not, how can I help you? Not, good morning. Just, yes? Good morning, Samuel said softly, his voice deliberately quiet. I'm here regarding a customer service issue I've been trying to resolve. Julia's eyes scanned him from head to toe, taking in the worn jeans, the old jacket, the tired shoes. Her expression shifted from annoyance to thinly veiled contempt. Customer service is on the 4th floor, she said, her tone dripping with dismissal. You'll need to take the elevator. I was told I could get help here. 4th floor, Julia interrupted, already looking back at her phone. Next. Samuel felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his composure. This was exactly why he'd come. Hit that like button because it gets so much worse before it gets better. And make sure you're subscribed because the revenge moment is absolutely savage. Samuel moved away from the reception desk and sat on one of the modern leather benches in the lobby's waiting area. From here, he had a perfect view of everything and everyone. Within minutes, another person approached Julia's desk, a man in an expensive suit carrying a designer briefcase. Julia's entire demeanor transformed. She sat up straighter, smiled warmly, and said in a completely different tone, Good morning, sir. Welcome to Halberg Industries. How may I assist you today? The contrast was staggering. Samuel pulled out a small notebook, something he always carried, and began taking notes. Not names, necessarily, but behaviors, patterns, the culture he'd unknowingly allowed to fester. 20 minutes passed. Then Samuel noticed her, an elderly woman with silver hair, walking slowly with a cane in one hand and a worn folder clutched tightly in the other. She wore a simple floral dress and a cardigan that had been mended several times. She approached the reception desk tentatively, as if afraid she might be intruding. Excuse me, miss, the woman said softly, her voice trembling slightly with age. My name is Dorothy Brennan. I submitted a claim 3 weeks ago and I haven't heard back. I just wanted to check if there's any update. Julia didn't even look up from her computer screen. Name? Dorothy Brennan. Brennan. Julia typed slowly, deliberately, making the woman wait. Finally, she said flatly, "It's still processing." "Oh," Dorothy said, her shoulders sagging. "Do you know when it might be ready? You see, I need it for my medical—" "Ma'am," Julia interrupted, her voice sharp with impatience, "I already told you it's processing. You'll be notified when it's done. There's nothing else I can tell you." Dorothy's hand trembled slightly on her cane. "I'm sorry to be a bother. I really need—" "Next!" Julia called out, looking past Dorothy entirely. The elderly woman stood there for just a moment longer, her dignity crumbling, before slowly turning away. As she passed Samuel, he could see tears brimming in her eyes. Something inside Samuel shattered. He'd built this company on the belief that everyone deserved respect, that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. That kindness wasn't a weakness. It was the foundation of everything meaningful. And here, in his own lobby, a vulnerable woman was being treated like garbage. Drop a like right now if you think Julia deserves what's coming to her, because, oh boy, karma is about to hit hard. Samuel stood up and quietly approached Dorothy, who was now sitting alone on a bench, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "Excuse me," he said gently, sitting down beside her with respectful distance. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you all right?" Dorothy looked up, surprised that anyone had noticed her distress. "Oh, I'm fine, dear. Just feeling a bit foolish, that's all." "You're not foolish," Samuel said firmly, but kindly. "What you're feeling is the result of being treated poorly. That's not your fault." Dorothy's eyes welled up again. "I don't understand what happened to this company. I've been a customer for almost 15 years. It used to feel different. People used to care." "Tell me about your claim," Samuel said. "What happened?" And Dorothy did. She explained how she'd purchased an extended warranty on medical monitoring equipment she desperately needed due to a heart condition. The device had malfunctioned, but getting it replaced had become a nightmare of transferred calls, lost paperwork, and dismissive treatment. Samuel listened to every word, his heart breaking and his resolve strengthening with each detail. "May I see your paperwork?" he asked. Dorothy hesitated, then handed him the folder. Samuel reviewed it carefully. Everything was in order. The claim should have been processed within 72 hours. It had been 21 days. "Mrs. Brennan," Samuel said, "I'm going to help you fix this. But I need you to trust me for a little while, okay? Can you give me until tomorrow?" Dorothy looked at him with confusion and hope mixed together. "Who are you?" Samuel smiled gently. "Just someone who cares. I promise you, this will be resolved." He helped her up, made sure she had his personal business card, without his name or title, just a phone number, and watched as she slowly made her way out of the building. Then Samuel turned back toward the lobby, his expression unreadable. For the next 3 hours, Samuel wandered through different departments of his own company, invisible and unremarkable. In customer service on the 4th floor, he witnessed 2 employees openly mocking a client's accent after they hung up the phone. They did impressions, laughing loudly enough for nearby co-workers to hear. Some joined in. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. In the technical support department, he overheard a team leader tell his staff, "If someone calls about the X400 model, just tell them it's a user error. We don't have time to troubleshoot ancient equipment." The X400 wasn't ancient. It was only 3 years old, and thousands of customers still relied on it. In the break room, Samuel sat quietly in a corner while employees gossiped viciously about their co-workers. Names were named, rumors were spread, personal lives were dissected for entertainment. "Did you see what Karen wore yesterday?" one woman said, her voice dripping with judgment. "Honestly, if you can't afford decent clothes, maybe you shouldn't work here." Others laughed. Someone added, "And did you hear about Marcus? Apparently he couldn't afford the team dinner last week, so embarrassing." Samuel's hands clenched into fists under the table. These weren't just policy violations. This was cruelty. This was a culture that had rotted from the inside out. But then, something different happened. Samuel was standing near the elevator bank, pretending to study a company directory poster, when a young man approached him. He was probably in his mid-20s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. His name tag read, Aaron Mitchell, Customer Relations. "Excuse me, sir," Aaron said respectfully. "You've been walking around for a while. Are you looking for someone? Can I help you find a specific department?" Samuel was so surprised by the genuine kindness that he almost broke character. I was trying to get help with a product issue, but I'm not sure where to go." "No problem at all," Aaron said, his tone patient and welcoming. "What kind of product? Maybe I can point you in the right direction or even help you myself." Samuel explained a fabricated issue with one of Halberg's older product lines. Aaron listened attentively, asked clarifying questions, and then said, "You know what? That should have been resolved much faster than this. Let me take care of it for you right now. Do you have a few minutes?" For the next 20 minutes, Aaron worked with Samuel to document the issue, filed a priority claim, and even called a technician to expedite the process. He apologized multiple times for the inconvenience, offered a discount on future services, and made sure Samuel had his direct contact information. "If anything else comes up," Aaron said warmly, "please reach out to me personally. I'll make sure it gets handled properly." "You're very kind," Samuel said carefully. That's not common these days." Aaron shrugged modestly. "I don't think it should be uncommon. We all deserve respect, right? Doesn't matter what we're wearing or where we come from. My mom always taught me, treat people the way you'd want your own family treated." Those words hit Samuel like a thunderbolt. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman," Samuel said quietly. "She is," Aaron replied with a genuine smile. "She cleaned offices for 30 years to put me through college. She knew what it felt like to be invisible. I never want to make anyone feel that way." Samuel extended his hand. "Thank you, Aaron, truly." They shook hands, and Aaron headed back to his department, completely unaware that he'd just had a conversation with the company's founder. If Aaron just became your hero, show some love and hit that like button. And subscribe, because what happens to him later will absolutely warm your heart. That evening, Samuel sat in his corner office on the 30th floor, the city lights sprawling below him like a galaxy of possibility. But he wasn't admiring the view. He was reviewing pages and pages of notes, names, incidents, patterns of behavior. His company had grown successful by every measurable metric: revenue, market share, and innovation. But somewhere along the way, it had lost its soul, and Samuel knew exactly what he had to do. He opened his laptop and typed a single email to his entire staff. Subject: mandatory all-staff meeting time, tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp, location, main conference hall, attendance non-negotiable. He hit send at 10:43 p.m. Within minutes, his phone began buzzing. Text messages from department heads asking what the meeting was about. Confused emails from managers wondering if there was a crisis. Samuel responded to none of them. The next morning at 8:45 a.m., the main conference hall was packed. All 1,500 employees crammed into the space, filling every seat, lining the walls, buzzing with nervous speculation. "Do you think there are going to be layoffs?" someone whispered. "Maybe we're getting acquired," another guessed. "I heard the CEO is stepping down," a third voice added. Julia, the receptionist, sat near the middle of the room, looking annoyed at having her morning disrupted. She was texting on her phone, barely paying attention. At exactly 9 a.m., the side door opened. Samuel Halberg walked in. But this wasn't the humble, invisible man from yesterday. This was the CEO, sharp navy suit, perfectly tailored, radiating quiet authority. His presence immediately commanded the room into absolute silence. Some employees who'd worked there for years had never actually seen him in person. Others recognized him instantly. And a few, including Julia, felt their blood run cold as recognition slowly, horrifyingly dawned. Samuel walked calmly to the front of the room, stood behind the podium, and let the silence stretch for a long, uncomfortable moment. "Good morning," he finally said, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made everyone lean forward. "Yesterday," Samuel continued, "a man walked into this building. He was wearing old clothes. He looked tired. He needed help. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Some of you saw him. Most of you ignored him. A few of you mocked him." Julia's face had gone completely white. "That man sat in our lobby for 3 hours," Samuel said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "He watched how you treated customers. He listened to how you spoke to each other. He observed the culture that has been growing in this company like a disease." Someone in the back gasped as they realized what was happening. "That man," Samuel said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "was me." The room erupted. Gasps, shocked murmurs, people turning to look at each other in disbelief and panic. Julia's hands were shaking. Several employees who'd been in the break room gossip session looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Smash that like button right now, because this is about to get intense, and make sure you're subscribed because you won't believe how this ends. Samuel raised his hand, and the room fell silent again. "I built this company from nothing," he said, his voice now filled with emotion. "I built it because I believed that business could be different, that success and kindness weren't mutually exclusive, that we could create something that genuinely helped people while treating every single human being with dignity." He paused, his jaw tight. "But yesterday, I watched a vulnerable elderly woman get dismissed like garbage at our reception desk. I watched employees mock customers the moment they hung up the phone. I overheard staff members cruelly gossiping about their colleagues' financial struggles. I saw favoritism, arrogance, and a complete absence of the values this company was built on." The shame in the room was palpable. "I need to be clear about something," Samuel continued. "This isn't about one bad day. This isn't about isolated incidents. This is about a systemic cultural failure, and I take full responsibility for allowing it to happen." He looked directly at his leadership team seated in the front rows. "I've been too distant, too focused on numbers and market share and quarterly reports. I stopped walking these floors. I stopped knowing the names of the people who actually interact with our customers. And in my absence, we became exactly what I never wanted us to be." "But here's what you need to understand," Samuel said, his voice strengthening. "True character isn't revealed when we're being watched. It's revealed when we think no one sees us, when we believe there are no consequences, when we can choose between easy and right, and nobody would know the difference." His gaze moved across the room, landing on someone in the back. "Aaron Mitchell, would you please stand up?" Aaron, looking confused and terrified, slowly stood. "Yesterday," Samuel said, "when I was that man in old clothes that everyone else ignored, Aaron approached me. He asked if I needed help. He listened to my problem. He solved it efficiently and kindly. And when I thanked him, do you know what he said?" The room waited. He said, "We all deserve respect, right? My mom cleaned offices for 30 years. She knew what it felt like to be invisible. I never want to make anyone feel that way." Samuel's voice caught slightly with emotion. "Aaron, your mother would be proud of you, because while others in this room were too busy judging people by their appearance, you were busy remembering your humanity." Tears were streaming down Aaron's face. "Effective immediately," Samuel announced. "Aaron Mitchell is promoted to Director of Customer Experience. He will report directly to me, and he will lead the transformation of our customer service culture." The room erupted in applause, some genuine, some desperately trying to show approval. Aaron looked shocked, overwhelmed, and deeply moved all at once. "If you're crying right now, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you believe good people deserve good things, and subscribe because we share stories of justice and kindness like this every day. But Samuel wasn't finished. "Now," he said, and the applause died immediately, "we need to address the consequences." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Julia Martinez," Samuel said, his voice firm, "please stand." Julia stood on shaking legs, her face blotchy with held-back tears. "Yesterday you dismissed me without even making eye contact, but more importantly, you treated an elderly customer with such callous disrespect that she left this building in tears. That woman's name is Dorothy Brennan, and her life-critical medical equipment claim has been sitting unprocessed for 3 weeks." Julia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You are terminated, effective immediately," Samuel said with finality. "Security will escort you out." Julia collapsed back into her seat, sobbing. "Marcus Chen, Bradley Foster, and Stephanie Wright," Samuel continued, reading from a list. "You 3 were overheard mocking a customer's accent and laughing about it with your team. You're terminated." One by one, Samuel called out names, people who'd been cruel, dismissive, or who'd fostered a toxic environment. 12 people in total were fired that morning. The room was frozen in shock and fear. "I want to be very clear," Samuel said, his voice softer now. "This isn't about perfection. We all make mistakes. We all have bad days. But there's a difference between human error and systematic cruelty, between a bad moment and a pattern of disrespect." He looked around the room at all the terrified faces. "For everyone still here, this is your second chance. We're going to rebuild this culture together. Starting today, we're implementing new policies." He outlined his plan. Mandatory empathy and customer service training for all staff. Monthly anonymous feedback systems where customers rate their experiences. A. Zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, mockery, or favoritism. Quarterly undercover evaluations where leadership would anonymously test the customer experience. Profit-sharing bonuses tied not just to revenue, but to customer satisfaction scores. "This company will be profitable and kind," Samuel declared, "because I refuse to believe those things are mutually exclusive." "And one more thing," Samuel added. "Dorothy Brennan's claim has been processed. Her new medical equipment will be delivered to her home this afternoon, along with a full refund of her warranty costs and a personal apology letter from me. Aaron made sure of it this morning before any of you even arrived." The room erupted in genuine applause this time. Samuel looked at Aaron, who was wiping tears from his face, and smiled. "We're going to be better," Samuel said to everyone, "starting right now." Like this video if you believe companies should put people before profits. And subscribe, because we're just getting to the beautiful conclusion. The weeks following the reckoning, as employees started calling it, were intense. Samuel didn't retreat to his penthouse office. Instead, he spent 3 days a week on different floors, working alongside teams, eating lunch in the cafeteria, and learning the names and stories of his coworkers. He met Sandra, a single mother in accounting who'd been struggling to afford childcare. He met Marcus, not the terminated one, a talented programmer who'd been overlooked for promotions because he was quiet and didn't network aggressively. He met Teresa, a warehouse supervisor who'd implemented an entire inventory system improvement that no one in management had noticed. Samuel listened. He learned. He changed. The training sessions Aaron designed weren't boring corporate seminars. They were genuine conversations about empathy, vulnerability, and what it truly means to serve others. Aaron brought in his mother, Elena, to speak to the staff about her experiences as a cleaning worker. How invisible she'd felt, how much small acts of kindness had meant to her. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Customer satisfaction scores, which had been declining for 18 months, reversed course dramatically. Within 6 weeks, they were up 47%. Within 3 months, Halberg Industries had the highest customer satisfaction rating in its industry. But more than that, something intangible changed. The building felt different, warmer, more human. People smiled at each other in the hallways. Employees helped each other without being asked. The receptionist, a woman named Claire who'd replaced Julia, greeted every single person who walked through those doors with genuine warmth, regardless of what they were wearing. One afternoon, Samuel was reviewing reports in his office when Aaron knocked on the open door. "Got a minute?" Aaron asked. "For you?" "Always," Samuel replied, gesturing to a chair. Aaron sat down, looking both nervous and excited. "I wanted to update you on something. Remember Dorothy Brennan?" "Of course," Samuel said. "How is she?" "She's doing great. Her equipment is working perfectly, but that's not why I'm here." Aaron pulled out his tablet. Dorothy wrote about her experience on social media. It went viral, over 2 million views. She talked about how badly she was treated initially, but then how you personally fixed everything and followed up with her multiple times. Aaron turned the tablet toward Samuel. The post was titled, "A CEO Who Actually Cares, My Experience with Halberg Industries." Samuel read it, his eyes misting over. "I'm 76 years old and I've dealt with a lot of companies in my life. Most treat elderly customers like we're invisible or stupid. But Samuel Halberg personally called me, apologized, and made sure everything was fixed. Then he sent a young man named Aaron to my house to set up the equipment and teach me how to use it. They didn't have to do any of that. But they did, because they actually care. If every business operated like this, the world would be a much kinder place." "There's more," Aaron said, swiping to show dozens of similar posts. "People are noticing the change. Our customer testimonials have increased by 300%. And Samuel, we're getting job applications from top talent who specifically mention wanting to work for a company with soul." Samuel leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed. "You did this," Aaron said quietly. "You risked your own ego, walked among us as an equal, and showed us what really mattered." "No," Samuel corrected gently. "We did this. You, me, Dorothy, Elena, and every person in this building who chose to embrace change instead of resist it." Drop a like if this story is giving you hope that good business is possible. And subscribe, because the ending is going to leave you speechless. 3 months after the reckoning, Samuel did something unprecedented. He announced an all-staff meeting again. This time, people weren't afraid. They were curious. Samuel stood before them, but this time his demeanor was relaxed, almost casual. "I have an announcement," he said with a slight smile. "Halberg Industries just had our most profitable quarter in company history." Cheers erupted. "But," Samuel raised his hand, "that's not the news I'm most proud of. What I'm most proud of is this." He pulled up a slide showing customer satisfaction data, employee retention rates, and testimonials. "We didn't just make money, we made a difference. We proved that profitability and compassion can coexist, that treating people right isn't a cost, it's an investment." He paused, looking around at all the faces he'd come to know. "And because of that, I'm instituting a new policy. 15% of our quarterly profits will be divided among all employees, not just executives, everyone who contributed to making this company better." The room went wild. "But there's one more thing," Samuel said, his voice growing emotional. "Aaron Mitchell has become one of the most valuable leaders in this company. His department has the highest satisfaction scores, the lowest turnover, and the most innovative ideas. And today, I'm announcing that Aaron is being promoted again to Vice President of Customer Relations and Company Culture." Aaron, sitting in the front row next to his mother Elena, looked absolutely stunned. "Come up here," Samuel said. Aaron walked to the front, and Samuel shook his hand firmly, then pulled him into a hug. "You reminded me why I built this company," Samuel whispered, so only Aaron could hear. "Thank you." Later that evening, Samuel found himself back in the lobby. the same spot where this entire journey had begun. Claire, the new receptionist, was helping an elderly man who seemed confused about which department he needed. She was patient, kind, and walked him personally to where he needed to go instead of just pointing. Samuel smiled. He walked outside into the cool evening air and stood looking up at his building, 30 stories of steel and glass, with his name etched above the entrance. But now, that name meant something different. It wasn't just a brand, it was a promise that every person who walked through those doors, whether customer, employee, or visitor, would be treated with dignity. His phone buzzed. A text from Erin. "Dinner with Mom this weekend? She wants to thank you personally." Samuel typed back, "I'd be honored, but tell Elena she doesn't need to thank me. I should be thanking her for raising someone who taught an old CEO how to remember what really matters." 6 months later, Samuel did another undercover visit. But this time, it wasn't to expose problems, it was to celebrate solutions. He walked in wearing the same old jeans and faded jacket. Claire greeted him warmly. "Good morning. Welcome to Hallberg Industries. How can I help you today?" He spent 3 hours observing, and what he saw filled him with pride. Employees helping each other. Customers are being treated with respect. A culture that had genuinely transformed. At one point, he overheard 2 new employees talking in the break room. "I've worked at 5 different companies," one said, "and this is the only place where people actually seem to care about each other." "I know," the other replied. "My friend told me it's because the CEO once pretended to be a regular customer and fired everyone who treated him badly." Is that true? It's true, but that's not the whole story. The real story is that he showed everyone what we'd become and gave us a chance to be better. Samuel smiled and quietly slipped out. That night, Samuel sat at his desk and wrote in his personal journal, something he'd started doing every evening since the reckoning. Success isn't measured in revenue or market share. It's measured in how many lives you improve. How much kindness do you create? How much dignity do you restore? I almost lost sight of that. But a woman named Dorothy, a young man named Aaron, and a day spent being invisible reminded me of the only thing that really matters, how we treat each other when no one important is watching. Because the truth is, everyone is important. Every single person. He closed the journal, turned off his desk lamp, and looked out at the city one more time. Tomorrow, he'd do it all again, but this time, he'd do it right. So what did this story teach us? First, never judge someone by their appearance. That person you dismiss might be someone powerful. But more importantly, they're someone who deserves respect regardless of their power. Second, true leadership isn't about sitting in an ivory tower. It's about being willing to step down, to see the truth, to experience what others experience. Samuel didn't send a consultant. He became the customer. Third, one act of kindness can change everything. Aaron didn't know he was helping his future boss. He just knew someone needed help. That single act of compassion not only saved his career, it helped save an entire company. Fourth, culture doesn't change with memos and mission statements. It changes when leaders take real action, make hard decisions, and hold everyone, including themselves, accountable. And finally, success without humanity is just failure in expensive clothing. Samuel had built a profitable empire, but it meant nothing until it was also built on compassion. Music builds to final crescendo. Here's the reality. We all make choices every single day about how we treat people. The barista is making your coffee. The delivery driver is bringing your package. The customer service representative is on the phone. The colleague in the next cubicle. And those choices reveal who we really are. Samuel Hallberg learned that the hard way. But he also learned something beautiful. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to remember your humanity. It's never too late to build something that actually matters. So I want to ask you something. Think about your own life, your own workplace, your own daily interactions. Are you being a Julia, dismissing people who you think don't matter? Or are you being an Aaron, treating everyone with the dignity they deserve? The choice is yours. Every single day, if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of what really matters, please smash that like button right now. It helps more people discover these stories. And if you're not already subscribed to True Soul Stories, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share true stories about karma, justice, compassion, and the incredible things that happen when people choose kindness over convenience. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done if you were in Samuel's position? Would you have fired people on the spot or handled it differently? We read every single comment, and we love hearing your perspectives. Remember, how you treat people when no one is important is watching reveals everything about who you really are. But here's the secret. Everyone is important. Every single person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Every person deserves respect, dignity, and kindness. Samuel Halberg forgot that for a while, but he remembered. And in remembering, he didn't just save his company, he saved his soul. What will you choose to remember today? This has been True Soul Stories. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being the kind of person who believes that kindness always wins, because in the end, it always does. Like, subscribe, and choose compassion. We'll see you in the next story.